at the meeting, and then everybody come unglued. They probably consumed me for 36 months. It was brutal, because remember they had to redo it all. They got forced into redoing it all with a lawsuit, and they got forced into doing a job search, and he never resigned from council, and then they went through the Maricopa job search and all that, and still didn't quit. And anyway, it was brutal. He did the front page. Well, J.J. Hilfinger made his personal quest. He did. He was doing it all on his personal quest.
Yeah.
Oh, we are broadcasting.
Okay.
Didn't know that. What channel is it on?
189.
Oh, no wonder I couldn't find it. I mean, I'm never there to watch it, but I was looking in the 90s for it one day.
Okay, oh,
And
it used to be.
Changed it.
Channel
no-
189.
97, right?
189?
189 now.
Weird number.
We'll call the meeting to order, and we are sorry we didn't realize this was going to be on the air, so I understand we are on the air, and we are discussing the upcoming Proposal 1 for transportation, a millage request in the across the state of Michigan. So, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate this opportunity to provide this information to the Commission. In working through this presentation, both myself and the City Engineer, Linda Basista, tried to provide as much information so that the Commission, as well as the community, can make an informed decision regarding Proposal 15-1 and how it would impact city operations,
Great.
Transportation funding, and general funding. And for the presentation, I'll provide the general background on city finances as well as the proposal, and then Engineer Basista will be able to outline exactly how this would affect our transportation system specifically.
Excellent.
So if I could please ask our Assistant City Manager to throw the presentation, slide 2 of the presentation up on the screen. That would be.
If we can get IT to prompt that up on the screen.
There we go. Thank you.
Is your mic on?
Yeah. So,
Oh, it's not. It's Kelly.
okay. Thanks, Kelly.
I thought for sure you were going to ask me to help. Be the computer expert.
So on the slide that follows, the presentation slide, outlines the current structure of transportation funding within the state of Michigan. And currently, as most people are aware and have read in the various publications regarding this matter, at this point in time, there is a 19 cents tax on gallons of gasoline with 15 cents per tax per gallon of diesel. And in addition to that, the 6% sales tax is applied to each gallon, with the revenues from the 6% sales tax being directed to local governments and schools. This structure was implemented in 1997 by Governor Engler, and over time has become an insufficient mechanism for governmental units to meet the increasing demands of managing and maintaining a modern transportation network. Under Proposal 1, the 19-cent per gallon tax would be eliminated, as would the 6% sales tax that would be applied to gallons of gasoline and diesel. And in lieu of those two taxing mechanisms, a 14.9% tax would be applied to the wholesale price per gallon of gasoline and diesel, generating about 41.7 cents of transportation funding per gallon of gasoline. The way that the proposal the way it would activate various bills is that the amount that would go towards transportation would not decrease below 41.7 cents, and it would be adjusted based on inflation. And regarding the state sales tax, as everybody knows, that would increase from 6% to 7% to restore and increase funding for local governments and schools, which would be impacted by the restructuring of taxes on the fuel. So basically, with the elimination of the 6% sales tax, eliminating that would cause reductions in the funds that would go to local governments and schools, and the increase in the sales tax that would be on the ballot would go to compensate for that. So some additional points regarding Proposal 1. Right now, the City of Sault Ste. Marie would receive $1,253,787. That's what it currently receives right now through Act 51. If Proposal 1 were to be adopted during fiscal year 16, it would receive $1,529,654, which would be an increase for the next fiscal year of $275,867. And as you can see from the information, this amount increases over the next 2 successive fiscal years, and that is because Proposal 1, during the first 2 years, there is a portion of the legislation that would enable the state of Michigan to pay down past issued debt on construction projects. So over the next 3 fiscal years, this total is $1,655,200 in additional transportation funding that the city would be able to apply towards the management of its transportation network. After fiscal year 2017 to 18, assuming that there are no major increases or decreases to the inflation and that it were to remain at the estimated cost per gallon, it's estimated that the city would collect about $827,600 per year for transportation management expenses, and a 10-year projection showing that the city would collect $7,448,400 for its management of the transportation network. So over time, the administration wanted to emphasize that the city's general fund and other funds have or are planning to subsidize the city's major and local streets by the various amounts that follow. These amounts have fluctuated based on the swings in operating costs as well as capital improvement costs. You'll see that in fiscal year 2003 to 4, it was $450,000, and then the average is right around between $350,000 and $400,000, and then for fiscal year 2015 to 2016, it's estimated that it will be about $630,000. So in total, the city has used general fund or other funds to support major and local streets by just over $5,578,251. Now, this is something that's fairly standard within Michigan municipalities. The Sioux is not the only city to do this. But if Proposal 1 were to pass, this would provide the city with the major and local streets having less of a need to rely on the other funds. It would provide the other funds of the city with the capacity to fund other infrastructure projects and support overall operations. It would provide the city with the ability to invest more in capital preventative maintenance projects that would ultimately save taxpayers money. So rather than reconstructing a road, doing seal coating or thin overlays, those kind of projects would help extend the lifespan of the transportation assets and would be a good investment over time. And then in addition to that, Proposal 1, if adopted by the voters, would provide an additional $125,847 per annum in additional revenue sharing payments, which would further boost and bolster municipal service delivery to the community. So as far as the actual mechanics of Proposal 1, just wanted to outline the 10 pieces of legislation that are connected to the actual ballot measure. The first one would be House Bill 4251, which does not have much of an impact on the city and would allow township boards to require the county road commissions to call for competitive bids on certain road projects. House Bill 4539 and House Bill 5492 would provide that the sale of regular and diesel fuels would be exempt from the state sales tax and use tax, which would increase from 7% to 7% from 6%. And additionally, the House Fiscal Agency estimates that removing the sales tax from fuel sales would result in a loss of revenue of $653.6 million in the 2016 fiscal year, with most of that loss, $479.3 million, hitting the school aid fund. Hence the increase in the sales and use tax to 7%, which would raise an additional $1.5 billion in 2016, with about $772 million of that going to the school aid fund. So essentially, the way that the proposal would work and the legislation connected to it would work is that the intent is that every payment that's made at the pump, the 41.7 cents or however that's adjusted, would go straight to transportation funding, and then the sales tax increase would go to support the portions of funding for local government and schools that used to be funded out of the sales tax applied to gasoline. House Bill 4630 would provide that buyers of new cars would lose registration fee discounts, heavy commercial trucks would have their registration fees increased, and a new surcharge would be placed on electric vehicles under the bill. By fiscal year 2018, making these adjustments, it's estimated that there would be an additional $62.2 million that would be collected for the transportation management purposes, according to the House Fiscal Agency, from reducing the depreciation discount for new cars and light trucks, and the increased fees on heavy trucks would raise an extra $39.8 million in 2018, and the surcharges on electrical vehicles would raise an extra $636,900 once these are fully implemented. House Bill 5167 would provide that the Michigan Department of Transportation and local road agencies would be required to develop systems that track and use performance ratings in connection with road maintenance projects. And this is something that is consistently done, but I think this language is meant to emphasize that even more than current practice. House Bill 5460 would provide that new road monies raised in the first 2 years after Proposal 1 passes would be used to pay off debt, among multiple other provisions. The debt that would be paid is just over $1.332 billion that the state of Michigan previously issued for road construction projects. And this is why when you look at the projections in this information, the amount that would be received by the city increases from fiscal year 16 to 17, and then increases again from fiscal year 17 to 18. Senate Bill 80 would spend an extra $40 million from the school aid fund, but provide additional revenue to as many as 766 school districts and charter school academies with at-risk students. Senate Bill 847 would adjust the Michigan's Earned Income Tax Credit for low to moderate income families, restoring it to its 2011 level, and would also enhance homestead tax credit for low-income seniors and people with disabilities, among other provisions. The expansion of this credit would cost about $261 million a year, and the expansion of the homestead property tax credit would cost about $300,000 per year. And then finally, just like the elimination of the sales tax, more of the heart of the proposal geared towards transportation funding would be House Bill 5477 and House Bill 5493, which would provide for the removal of the 19-cent per gallon tax on regular fuel and the 15-cent per gallon tax on diesel fuel, and replace both with a single percentage-based fuel tax that could never drop below 41.7 cents per gallon and would increase with inflation. The resulting jump in the pump price would be significantly reduced because of the other legislation that removes the sale tax from fuel sales. So in 10 or 15 years, as the price per gallon increases, the actual structure of the legislation connected with Proposal 1 would over time decrease the amount that would be paid at the pump in comparison to the current transportation funding structure. The wholesale price would have to top $2.80 per gallon before the minimum tax of 41.7 cents per gallon would be exceeded. Each year, the 41.7 cents per gallon minimum fuel tax would be increased by 5 cents or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, as noted previously. Of the amounts collected from the 41.7 cents or the adjusted amount moving forward, 89% of tax revenues would go to road and bridges, 9% would go to transit and rails, and 2% would go to recreation activities that use fuel. And in our most recent trip to the Michigan Municipal League's legislative conference, the question was posed by Commissioner Torti as to whether some of these funds could be used for the Carbide Dock, and we received an answer from Representative Chatfield's office that that was in fact the case.
That was in fact a use that could be
That would be
applied to the, okay,
correct.
okay.
In addition to that information, once fully implemented, there would be an additional $1.9 billion in state revenue as of fiscal year 2017-18. Of that total aggregate amount, $1.3 billion would go to state and local road agencies. $116.1 million would be directed toward public transportation. $200 million additional would be directed to the school aid fund. $111.1 million would be directed to local government revenue sharing, and $173 million would be directed to the state general fund. The amounts above consider and are after the cost of the expanded earned income tax credits connected to the legislation of Proposal 1. Now, if Proposal 1 fails, the city cannot indefinitely continue its current level of street fund subsidization without reducing services, personnel through attrition, or both. The funding structure simply wouldn't allow that under the current structure of transportation funding. The city would be required to use an insufficient transportation system to meet some of its most critical infrastructure needs. The level of infrastructure improvements performed on the city's transportation network may decrease as more available funds would be directed towards the operating expenses unless significant operational realignments are made. And the roads would continue to worsen, and the current citizen satisfaction expressed in the survey connected to the master plan would be impaired. Now, just some additional information regarding Proposal 1. As indicated by the Mackinac Center for Public Policy, Proposal 1 may cost residents of the state between $477 and $525 more in taxes annually. However, on the other side of that, the Michigan Municipal League has indicated that many states do have some form of local sales tax, which is not present in Michigan, which is prohibited by state law from municipalities collecting the same. Additionally, the state of Michigan, according to the MML, would still be economically competitive with a 7% sales tax. In kind of weighing out the cost that consumers would take on with Proposal 1, the other considerations is that Michigan residents pay the highest individual repair cost for their vehicles annually in the country at an estimated $357 per driver, according to the Detroit Free Press. And it's expected that safer roads may reduce these costs. Finally, according to the Citizens Research Council, a married couple with 3 children and an annual income of $45,000 would qualify for a $94 credit under the current earned income tax credit structure. If Proposal 1 were to pass, this same family, it's estimated that they would qualify for a $312 credit, according to the Free Press. So there are some additional considerations based on individual circumstances. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Engineer Basista.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners.
Afternoon, Linda.
As City Manager Turner stated earlier in his presentation, with respect to the current monies that we get from the gas and weight taxes, Act 51 funds, also known as, we get approximately $1.25 million per year, and currently all of that money goes into the major and local streets operating funds for plowing snow, crack sealing, street sweeping, and all the activities that our street department that performs on our street maintenance. What I do and what this presentation, my part of the presentation is going to focus on is what we currently have funds for capital improvement projects. And also City Manager Turner mentioned previously that capital preventative maintenance includes crack sealing and seal coating. There we go. City Manager Turner also mentioned that capital preventative maintenance includes seal coating and crack sealing, and that is done by the Department of Public Works. But the mill and resurface, the thin overlays, the street reconstructions are performed by contract, typically by contract, by bidding out. So those are capital improvement projects, and currently this slide shows on the top slide, I could go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you. The top table is where we currently, is an estimate of annual revenue that we currently have for capital improvement projects. So we have a road millage, and we collect approximately $272,000 per year from that. We have an agreement with the tribe where we receive approximately $300,000 for road projects called the Gaming Compact. And also just to capture a little bit of what goes back into the funds that are taken out, we get $25,000. Typically that's returned, and for non-CSO special assessment payments that we receive from property owners that are assessed for street improvements. So I use, when I'm planning my capital improvement projects and projecting out every year, I've been using approximately $597,000 to plan street projects. This year and going forward, and has not been the case in the past, some of that funds for this year in the proposed budget will be taking $450,000 and putting it into the major and local street operating fund to offset the deficit that is part of the due to the general fund. And going forward in my projections, we've used $250 per year. That the capital improvement, we call these capital improvement funds, will be used to subsidize the major and local streets operating funds. If Proposal 1 does pass, that's the second table, our current local sources are $597,000. Year 1, we propose to then take that $250,000 that we're projecting that needs to subsidize operating. Year 1 from Proposal 1, we get an extra $26,000 for capital improvements. Year 2 is estimated to be $302,000, and year 3, which is fiscal year 2018 and beyond, an extra $578,000. So in fiscal year 2018 and beyond, we are anticipating to have an extra $1.175 million to put towards capital improvement projects. So I did a 10-year estimated revenue and expenses comparison with and without the Proposal 1 passage. And in front of you also as part of your handout is the detail associated with that 10-year projection, year by year, what would be potentially proposed for capital preventative maintenance, for street reconstructions, bridge preventative maintenance, gravel road grade lifts, and as you'll see with Proposal 1, we may even be able to start considering paving some of our gravel roads. So this is strictly these main projects that we typically fund for capital improvement, but there are sometimes projects that aren't not proposed in here that do get paid for out of the capital improvement funds, which would be culvert replacements for streets, but sometimes those are included in street reconstruction. So those incidental projects have not been included here for demonstration purposes, but they certainly do need to be considered in our overall spending. So without Proposal 1, we would be anticipating being able to spend $3,915,000 over 10 years for capital improvement projects. And with proposal one, we're looking at being able to spend $9,596,000 on capital improvement projects. So in 2013, the city had 21.6 miles of roads that were rated in poor condition. This means the state, we follow the statewide system of evaluating and rating streets, and it's called PASER rating. And we rate our streets every year, or if not all of them every year. All federal aid streets are rated, and then we might rate city streets every other year. But in 2013, we had 21.6 miles of streets in need of reconstruction at a cost of $2.1 million per mile of road. We'd be looking at spending $45 million to reconstruct all of those streets. We had 38.7 miles of roads rated in good to fair condition. That means they need ongoing patching, thin overlays, mill and resurface with joint repairs. We'd be looking at spending $52 million for those capital improvement projects. We estimate costs about $1.3 million per mile of road to perform capital improvement projects on our roads. Then that totals not quite our total mileage of road. The rest of the roads, we have 88.33 miles of roads complete total. About half of the remaining streets would be gravel, and the other half would be streets that have recently been reconstructed that are in good to excellent condition. And we're very fortunate at this time, because of the CSO projects over the last 20 years, that we're probably in better condition right now in general than the state overall because of the reconstruction of the streets in the CSO. But if we can't continue to maintain those streets and apply capital preventative maintenance projects on the streets that are still in good condition, we'll be looking at rapidly increasing the miles of road that are in poor condition and reducing the number of streets that are in excellent condition that don't currently need capital preventative maintenance outside of crack sealing. Then that's just normal maintenance. So the next slide shows that without proposal one, we could perform $1.375 million of capital preventative maintenance, which is really only 1 mile of street or 14 city blocks. And with proposal one, over 10 years, we would be performing capital preventative maintenance on 4.52 miles of road or 60 city blocks. I know 60 city blocks is hard to imagine, but we have a lot of rural roads too that are long roads, not many. We don't do many projects in terms of a mile. We do projects in terms of typically 1 or 2 blocks at a time. So, but a combination, it could be considered 60 blocks or 4.52 miles of road. With the street reconstruction, and this is how we divvy up capital preventative maintenance and street reconstruction, is how I came to the conclusion is on this 10-year detailed sheet. But I'm assuming that with the pressure we still need to, with the pressure from citizens and the condition of roads in poor condition, that we would still need to reconstruct roads. So there would still be a 50-50 priority without the proposal one passage. So without proposal one, we were looking at being able to do 1.02 miles of street reconstruction. That equates to 13.5 blocks. But with proposal one, we'd be doing 1.21 miles of street reconstruction, and which equates to 16 city blocks. So what I'd just like to emphasize is that without proposal one, we will be in a condition of where we were years ago when we had to just decide on, you know, are we going to reconstruct streets, which we get a lot of complaints. Citizens usually complain about streets that are in very poor condition. They don't typically complain about streets that are just in simple need of a mill and resurface. But without Proposal 1, we'll have streets that continue to deteriorate, and we won't be able to keep up with keeping our good roads good. Whereas with Proposal 1, we'll be able to put more money into capital preventative maintenance, continue to reconstruct streets on a regular basis, and we won't get into the case where we're declining good, the number of good streets, and we're significantly increasing the number of poor streets.
So just to emphasize what Engineer Basista said, with Proposal 1, that would be more of a modern mechanism through which we'd be able to meet funding our transportation needs. It would also provide the city with the ability to continue purchasing the critical equipment that supports the maintenance of our streets, even potentially hire additional staff so we can strengthen our snow removal and road services, and can you continue to deliver the services that our citizens have come to expect in the future. And both Engineer Basista and I are happy to answer any questions that the commission may hold.
Okay, thank you very much, and we certainly have had a lot of information given to us, and those viewing it at home also a lot of information to digest as far as the statistics, the amount of an impact that comes to the city of Sault Ste. Marie. And I guess when you look at the overall benefit of Proposal 1, and certainly we couldn't go forward without thanking the Sioux Tribe of Chippewa Indians for the gaming compact back in the early, I think it was late 80s or early 90s, late 80s, signed the gaming compact on the 2% funds that we as a city continue to receive, the $300,000 minimum, and that money is all gone toward streets and roads in the community, and that has been a significant impact on our ability to do what we've done in the past, and we certainly thank them going forward. And also looking at the Proposal 1, a 245% increase, and the city attorney has done some figuring, 245% increase over a 10-year period with Proposal 1 and what we presently have. And that, no question that is significant, and going forward, I guess if we want good roads, we're going to have to pay for them. And it's no question that this community continues to give of themselves and out of their financial ability. Going forward with the combined sewer overflow program, which is coming to an end here in 2018, the people have paid as we've gone by their homes for the streets, in front of their homes, and we certainly appreciate that. And we had no choice on that matter. We were going to be, some of us were here back then, and remember the fines that were going to occur if we didn't improve our combined sewer overflow program and sewage being dumped into the St. Mary's River. So that has been taken care of, and now we're looking at a 20-year period of continuing to do that. Going forward, we have to protect the streets that we have, and we know on the clay soils around the area of the road that they continue to, even though it's a new road, and a lot of us are sitting on new roads that aren't 20 years old, and there are some significant cracks in the blacktop that is there. And I mean, we walk the roads, we drive the roads, we see that, and it's no question there's some significant amount of money that I mean, there is an increase, but because of the low-income tax credit, looks like those families that can afford it will be given money back through the tax proposals. It's not an easy question at all when you see the different things that are involved, but it wasn't an easy question going forward, and this is the best the legislature has come up with. But I think the significant impact to the city of Sault Ste. Marie. This is a statement, so Commissioner Gary.
I think the presentation was very informative, and thank you for all the time you spent putting it together. And I think that, in looking at the numbers, it's very, very obvious that this amount of money would help. And I think that a few of us had an opportunity to go to Lansing and talk to some of our legislators, and it was from both parties, Republican and Democrat party legislators had admitted that it very complex, the proposal is very complex. And if you look at it from an untrusting eye, it looks a little bit difficult, but this was their best way to be able to change some of the former tax structure that needs to be changed and to come up with a new plan to provide funding that's targeted for roads and infrastructure going forward. So I think both sides that we had talked to were confident that this was the best way for them to go forward to be able to increase the funding. And I think if you look at some of the groups that have supported it, obviously the larger tourism groups, the Municipal League, and any of the townships or the cities certainly support. We need to increase the quality of our infrastructure in Michigan. So I think from a city's perspective, we need to see the increase in dollars so we can maintain our roads. I think as the mayor said, the one thing that people complain about a lot is our roads. Well, if you want better roads, you're going to have to step up and pay a little bit to increase the quality of them.
Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. One thing that I keep hearing through the community is just that it's so confusing, but I feel like your presentation really laid out what were all the needs and why the money is going into so many different pots. And obviously there's a lot of different reasons why. I think that one thing that wasn't highlighted, and I do believe that this is true, is if Proposal 1 does not pass, I think that there will be some significant cuts to our schools, right, in the current situation.
I believe that Sioux Area Schools will probably be able to speak more effectively to that, but I know in speaking with Commissioner Gage about its impact on LSSU that there would be a negative effect on LSSU. So I would imagine that would apply, the same principle would also apply to the school system as well.
Okay.
And just like the road, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
the
no.
road system, it's just the same situation where our funding mechanism right now is from 1997, and either we're going to make progress on our roads or more of the capital funds will go towards operations.
Okay, thank you. And all I was going to say was I think that is another way to highlight that this is needed, that we should pass it, is whether you're interested in roads or whether you're interested in schools. Either way, we're going to be satisfying both budgets. So thank you.
Commissioner Lynn, any comment?
All I can say, I agree with what's been said, and we really need this to pass. It'll really help our road situation. You know, we're a town of 14,000 laid out. I think in the 1800s they said it was going to be Chicago of the North. Well, 90 miles of roads, I think it's 45 miles of alleys. It's just way too much for a town of 14,000, but this is really needed.
Commissioner Bauer, any comment or?
Why overstate the obvious?
Okay. Just, I didn't want to exclude you if you had a comment.
No, appreciate the thoughts, but what can you say?
Yeah. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Again, thank the administration for putting this together, and hopefully we had some folks listening at home and have a better understanding. I would think if they have questions or comments, maybe the city manager would comment on that.
Right, we'd be happy to answer any questions or meet with anybody. We can post this information online and work with the school system to obtain the relevant information, but certainly willing to answer any questions and try to provide the most accurate, objective information we can.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? We have a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Lynn?
Your Honor, I'd so move that we adjourn this very informative meeting.
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Sorry, I forgot to do that.